There we go. So hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of the Inclusion Conversation. It's really so nice to be with you here tonight. I literally cannot think of a better way to spend my first day. So welcome, and I love to start these a little bit differently. So what I wanted to do this time is to invite all of you to please close your eyes if you're comfortable to do so, and take a deep breath in and out. You can stay with your eyes closed if you're comfortable, or just open them and just don't focus your gaze on anything. I will read out some words to you that really resonated with me when I heard them, and I hope that they will set the tone for this session. May we find the courage to let go of who we're supposed to be, so that we can fully embrace our authentic selves, the imperfect, the creative, the vulnerable, the powerful, the broken, and the beautiful. May we show ourselves the compassion that comes from knowing that we are all made from strength and struggle. May we create a just and equitable world where privilege isn't a prerequisite for self-expression and authenticity, where everyone feels invited and safe to express their vulnerability and their power. May we experience the strength of connection, the love of belonging, and the grace of pure joy. By Brené Brown. You may all now come back to the room. If you had your eyes closed, feel free to open them. This is a quote that I heard when I was listening to Brené Brown's audiobook on imperfection, the art of imperfection. And I thought it was really suited to today's conversation, because really the purpose behind this talk show that I put together is to break down borders and bring people closer together, one conversation at a time, conversations focused on topics around diversity and inclusion. And so today we're talking specifically about LGBTIQA+, and we're going to hear personal stories, and we're going to discuss allyship together with Saskhia and Jyoti. So before we introduce them and they introduce themselves, I'll just run you through briefly how today is going to run. So we've got 3 parts. The first part is going to be very much Saskhia, Jyoti, and I having a brief conversation around the topic. And then we'll have 10 minutes, that's 20 minutes. Then we have 10 minutes of Q&A. So feel free to pop in the chat if you have any questions at any time. Just put them in. If you have comments, please use the chat as you wish throughout the entire time. And then finally, after that first half hour, which is recorded, then we'll stop the recording. And that's when things get really interesting. We have an open conversation, a courageous and brave conversation where you're welcome to share your personal story linked to the topic or related to it in some way. And also you can ask questions that maybe you wouldn't feel comfortable asking, day to day, like in a normal kind of setting. So this is really about creating that safe space that is driven, underpinned by kindness and compassion. So in terms of the etiquette for the conversation, so just very briefly, we are recording, as you know, cameras on is awesome if you're comfortable. And there are subtitles available. This time I managed to figure out how they worked. I hope, Simon, that they're working. Oh, there you go. I can enable them. Hopefully this is working now. Look at that. Hopefully the subtitles also are able to deal with my accent. We have the chat open, feel free to use it. And the mindset is very much about kindness, compassion, and openness for tonight. There are no breaks scheduled. If you need a break, you don't need to ask me. You can just take 5 and come back to us when you're ready. So that's just the little etiquette. And so now going into the introduction of our speakers. So first, I please introduce myself. I haven't done that yet. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Solène. I am a diversity and inclusion advocate. I'm really passionate about making people feel like they belong and creating conversations and communication around inclusion. So yeah, that's me. I'm also the author of various books, and I have a blog called Be Beyond Borders. If you'd like to visit after the show, feel free to do that as well. So now, enough from me. This is enough talking. I'm going to turn over to our guests. I'm so happy to be introducing them tonight. So first, we're going to hear from you, Saskia, and if you'd like to just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Saskia and I'm a transgender woman, and I'm here today to talk about my experiences as living as a transgender woman, but not just as a transgender woman, as a parent, as a student, as someone who's actually working and trying to get a job in the music industry, and just paving my way really, and just trying to find out where I fit in the world, how I navigate myself in this world, and trying to build allies and help educate, inform and empower others as well. So that's about me.
Great, thank you so much. I'm so happy to have you here. And then Jyoti, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so yeah, thank you so much for having me. My name is Jyoti Sehdev and I work for Costain as the Group Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Lead. So we are a construction and technology company, so very much focused on engineering. I'm actually a civil engineer by background and then moved into this corporate responsibility space at the end of 2020. So I openly identify as a lesbian, and I am the chair of Costain's LGBT plus and allies network. So I'll be bringing that kind of perspective to the conversation today, as well as a slightly different perspective of what it's been like coming out in an Indian culture in Britain.
Great, thank you so much both for your introduction, and we're going to turn to Jyoti. You, as you've mentioned, you founded an LGBT network and you're a D&I professional. So how important is it for you to take an active role in the LGBT community?
I think it's absolutely crucial, especially within the construction industry. We just do not have enough LGBT plus role models or visible people, and so I just think it's vital that we have people who we can relate to. It's also just really important when you think about what we're doing on a day-to-day in the day-to-day on site. So we're building huge structures. These things affect people, they potentially affect health and safety of all the people on site and eventually all the people using the structure. And so unless we have teams that are working together, they feel safe with one another, they feel able to raise concerns about health and safety on site, for example. We need to have that psychological safety. I know it's a bit of a buzzword at the minute, but we need to have that on site, so that people do build things correctly and they do work together so that what we build is right and is safe. And that's why for me it's just so important that we have teams where non-inclusive behavior is not acceptable, and that is made really, really clear by senior management and is fulfilled by everyone in the organization. And in construction, it's a few years behind some of the more forward thinking industry, so we're just trying to really change that and make that really clear, especially from the LGBT plus perspective.
Yes, that's really interesting, the point you make about making sure that behavior that is not inclusive is not accepted. There's a big piece around the diversity and inclusion conversation where, of course, we're advocating for inclusion, for openness, but also we need to do that piece around accountability. How do we make sure that we're holding people accountable when the inclusion diversity isn't the norm or isn't implemented? Absolutely. Saskia, we're going to turn to you. So as a representative of the teen LGBT, we don't often hear from trans women. So what does it mean to you to be here today? And what are some of your key messages that you want to come across?
So much to me. So I just want to say, firstly, thank you so much for being so kind, so open and accepting, and invite me onto this channel, because it's really nice to be able to get my voice heard, because I think sometimes I do struggle with representation, especially in the music industry. I do look around a lot of the time and I don't really see many people like myself. And I do worry for the younger generations. I think as more and more people are becoming aware of trans, who we are in our community, that we need to be represented equally and we need to be heard. But we also need to be kind of educated and helping people understand what we're about. So it's just really about giving people that kind of the tools, the education, and also the empowerment to be able to progress in their own lives, but also understand how other people live theirs. And I think in that way, it kind of helps to kind of inform and educate and help people to become an ally, because sometimes I don't think it's a discrimination issue. I think it's a lack of understanding and lack of education. And I think if we are doing more in terms of educating and representation and seeing more trans women out there, then more people will come and speak their voice. But I think at the moment, because there's not that much visibility, and when you do see that visibility, it's generally in a negative light, not in a positive light, that people generally judge you based on that. And it's such a shame. So this channel has been able to give me that platform where I can speak freely, openly, and in a way that's in a safe space that I feel that I can open up and help educate and inform others. But I have noticed some people are saying that they can't see the screen. So I do hope that people can see us in the speaker screen, because that would be a real shame if they can't. So I hope they can.
Yes, I think it seems to be something with Eventbrite. So if people join with the Zoom link, then they should be able to, and the recording will be showing all our faces. Yes, thank you for that. I have to say thank you for being here, because it's very brave to speak up on behalf of the community. And yeah, I was so grateful to meet you and to be able to have you on the show. So I'm really looking forward also to exploring a little bit more with both of you. The following questions around, we're going to touch on different things, but Jyoti, you mentioned about the industry, and also Saskia, you touched on it. You're both working in industries that can be seen as not yet there in terms of inclusion, so construction and music. So can you tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that perhaps you or other people that you know in the community have faced in those industries? Jyoti, if you want to go first.
So construction's got a very macho perception, and that doesn't come from nothing. It is very male dominated, but we're in a space where we're now seeing more and more people are willing to change, or change their opinions and their experiences. However, like I have heard the odd slur on site, and that's not as common as I think it used to be, but I've heard it, and it's definitely meant that, for example, I'd quite happily come out to people in the office, but I wouldn't come out to the workers on site necessarily. And so there's this kind of divide and this kind of tension when those two groups meet, for example. And I have had an experience when I was presenting to the workforce during Mental Health Awareness Week, and some of you may be aware that Mental Health Awareness Week tends to overlap with Ida Hobbit, the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia and Transphobia. So I was doing a bit of a combined talk on both of those subjects. And someone, we don't know who it was, but they actively disrupted the presentation by effectively hacking into the screen and just playing something random. I don't think they were playing something homophobic, but it was just to disrupt from what I was saying. And obviously that was very upsetting, and I think that was probably the most direct attack I guess is what it felt like, that I've had on site. But again, coming back to what I said initially, what was most important there was the reaction of management and how they dealt with it. So the next day, we had the work superintendent, who's basically like the highest level on site, and then the project director, who's like the highest level office wise, basically going into that same group of people and saying, we do not tolerate that behavior here. If that is how you're going to behave, we do not want you on our site, and you're very free to leave. And that message was sent really clearly. So we're never going to totally eliminate it from the world, but I think we can make our expectations and our stance very, very clear, and hopefully it will just set that precedent going forward.
I must say, like, working in the music industry, I just find everyone has been super supportive, super helpful, and super understanding, actually. One thing I will say about the music industry is the people that are working in it are amazing. They've been ever so supportive, ever so kind, and ever so accepting of me as a trans woman. That's not been my issue. I think my issue has literally been seeking employment when you go for jobs and you're looking for kind of work, that people that don't know you, because I feel that as a trans woman, you've always got to work 150%. You're not working at 100%. You're working twice as hard as everybody else, because you have to prove to everyone that you're just as good as anyone else. And I think sometimes that can be extremely draining physically and mentally, So for me, I'm kind of always working at 150%. And I think a lot of people, when they actually get to know you and understand, especially me, what I'm about, they have been really, really helpful. So I will say that I think the music industry is headed in the right direction. I think it will get there in time. Small steps are being made. And I want to help to kind of work alongside other allies in the music industry and help that become possible. So that's part of my mission. I want to form a trans girl band, and I want that to become a mainstream success in the music industry. We don't have that at the moment. So that is one of my projects that I have in the pipelines at the moment, as well as also managing another artist, an artist of color, which I really do appreciate as well, because I like working with underrepresented groups. So that's all underrepresented groups, because obviously my parents, they were deaf. My mum's half black and half white, and then my dad's Spanish and English, so I'm multicultural. So it's just like, for me, it makes sense. And I'm very accepting, and I don't judge people based on their color or their religion or anything like that. And I think because I've grown up in an environment where it's been so open and accepting, I think the hardest part for me was to accept myself. It was to actually accept myself. And I think it took me a little while. And because I've worked in the music industry and I kept hearing about authenticity, everyone wants to see you being authentic. And because I did marketing and I did it at Talyard Education. So big up to Talyard Education, really did help me, really supportive, a great educational establishment. They were absolutely wonderful. And I just think that, yeah, I'm really, really pleased. And I just think that once people get to know who you are and stuff like that, it's just basically a battle within myself sometimes. But I am getting there. And I think these talks, they help me to accept myself more. And I never really used to go around telling everyone my business. I just used to keep it to myself, like what Jyoti was saying, like it depends who it was. But as I'm going along my journey, I'm just like, I'm doing this because now I understand that it's not just about me. It's about helping others. It's about educating others. And if I'm not willing to put myself on a platform to help others, empower others, to help other people understand, because I'm quite lucky in a respect that a lot of people do accept me, and my life isn't that difficult in terms of being accepted. I think that's one of the hardest things as a trans woman, because it's various degrees depending on who you are and what you look like, because it's very image-based, image-focused. And I think I have been extremely lucky in that aspect. And because of that, I can use that to my advantage to connect with many different people and many different cultures. I've got friends from all over the world, friends from all different religions. So that helps me to, again, break down those barriers. And sometimes people have never spoke to a trans woman before, and that really surprises me. We're in 2022 now, do you know what I mean? And I'm like, really? You probably have
They
to
need to, everyone watching this, you need to get in touch with
you
Saskhia
know,
if you haven't, if you
welcome
haven't
to. I'm
already.
always here to help. Have a
Absolutely. I
chat.
think you're totally right. That element of representation and being a role model is so important as well. And I think we talked about that when we spoke before this around, you know, in the music industry, you don't see enough of the underrepresented groups, and how can we change that? And I think I'll now transition to something you also touched on, which is around the culture diversity piece. So you mentioned being from a multicultural background and family, and also your parents being deaf. So there's a lot of intersectionality there. And then Jyoti is also from an Indian background. So in terms of that intercultural piece, how do you think that being from a multicultural background helped or hindered your experience in some way?
Would you like to go first?
Yeah, I can go first. I think it's so the Indian from the Indian background. I think, you know, there's a very set expectation of what your life will be and what you should do, and we've seen that in schools of, you know, you're going to become a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. And unfortunately, I got one of them, so that was all right. And you know, there's the idea that you're you know, you get married and you live this hetero cisgendered lifestyle, and that's the expectation. And so then realizing that that wasn't going to be the case was really difficult. So I didn't actually come out to my parents until I was 25, I think, and I'm 28 now, so it really wasn't that long ago. And again, similarly with what I was saying before, it's who you choose to come out to. So well, a bit of an announcement. I technically came out on Facebook on Monday, so so my extended family probably now know whether whether they've read it or not. We'll find out. But
Monday, how come Monday?
I know, yeah, I know, and so yeah, thank you. And like I was just really glad because I'd got to that point with my mom, and I love my mother. I phoned her. I was like, Mom, I want to post this on Facebook, and you know, obviously it's you who's going to get the calls. It's not me, because you know that's how the family works. And my mom just like, oh, if anyone says something, they can bugger off. And I was like, okay, thank you, mother. Very, very supportive. So, and you know, it's taken a real journey to get there, because growing up I didn't get that messaging from my parents, but we've kind of worked through it together, and it's taken a long time to do that. um, and at the end of the day, what I kind of realized, and I think what we all kind of realized, was we just had different expectations of what would make us happy and what would make me happy. And you know, that's what I'm really lucky that that's what my parents wanted for me, and they thought that standard Hollywood lifestyle was what would make me happy, and actually it wasn't. And when we realized and were able to kind of match that up, that's when we could all get on board and you know, talk about it and be open about it. So I've been really fortunate, to be honest.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Saskhia, how about you?
Mine's been a bit of a, thinking about it, mine's been a bit of a roller coaster. So when I was about 5, I was living with my mum and dad. And then when I was about 5, they split up, they divorced. I came home from school one day and they was like, your mum's gone. And I was like, where's my mum gone? She's just gone, she disappeared. I didn't see my mum again until I was 17. So I was kind of living with my mum and dad. And then my dad met another woman. She fell pregnant, and then me and my brother, we were kind of like outsiders then. So we became kind of a bit pushed away. So we used to go to my grandparents. So after a little while, I went into foster home. Then I came back and I went to my grandparents, because my grandparents are kind of older, and they were very religious, always used to go to school, always used to go to church. I used to go to Sunday school every Sunday. So they used to take me to Sunday school. And I used to remember thinking in my head, if I tell my grandparents, they're going to leave me like my mum did. So for me, it was a very much keep it to yourself. Like at first, I think I knew I was different. And my mum always said to me, oh, when you was little, you used to put on my high heels. One day she had to take me to the hospital because I literally got nail varnish and glued my eyes together. So it was kind of like silly little things, like watching my mum when I was little. And I thought, yeah, I could do that. And it was all just a complete disaster. But I think it was very much kept it to myself. And then when I was at school, I met this a girl. She's a lesbian. She's mixed race herself. And her name's Raynana. And she kind of was the person I could confide in. And we kind of shared our secrets with. So she knew my secret, I knew hers, but we were kind of in the same situation. Again, she was brought up in a multicultural family, the same as mine. Her mum left her and she was with her dad. So it was kind of like we were living the same lives, but just in the complete different genders. She was very much a tomboy. I was very much the one who'd always have like tight clothes on, fitted tracksuits, very unisex kind of style clothing. I would never wear men's kind of clothing. And we just kind of really hit it off and kind of got each other from that age. We were just experimenting, I think. And then she fell pregnant. And then that was when I was 17. So my oldest son now is 21. So that just goes to show I'm a little bit older, I'm 38 now. But yeah, so my son's 21, my oldest one, and my other one's 16. So Raynana fell pregnant. And then when she had Martel, who's my oldest son, it was kind of like, right, I can't do anything right now because I've got a son and that son of mine needs a male figure in his life. So I put everything on hold for myself. First, it was my grandparents, then it was my son. Then I was like, right, it got to a stage where I can't do this anymore. I kept drinking, I was getting a bit upset, I was very distressed. I just couldn't carry on. And I knew I couldn't carry on living the way I was living. So I spoke to Raynana about it and we went to the doctors. I spoke to a doctor, it was a GP, and they said, you've got to live as a woman for 2 years and then come back. And I was just like, I can't do that. That's too much. I'm too scared. I can't do it. Literally living in a city in Oxford. I come from Oxford. So Oxford's a lovely city, don't get me wrong, but everybody knows everybody. I went to school there and everyone knows everyone's business. So trying to change your gender in a city where everyone knows you, it was extremely difficult. And I think what happened was once it got to an age where Reyes was born, after a little while, my second son was born and it was a complete accident again. And I thought, right, what am I going to do? So me and Raynana was kind of like, she wanted to have another son. I didn't want to have any more children, to be fair. I was quite happy with the one. But thank goodness I listened to her and we did have our second one because he's an absolute diamond. I love him to bits. And yeah, it was only when he got to about 5, the younger one. So now he's 16. And it was, I said to Raynana, right, I'm going to take him to the States. So we went to Florida. I took him to Disneyland in America. We went to Universal, we went around. And that's when I told them, I asked them, I said to my children, I don't care what anyone else says. I really care about what you two say. And I explained how I was feeling. I sat down to them because my older one was 10 then, the younger one would have been 5. So the younger one was a little bit younger, but the older one could understand. And they both turned around and said, we love you for whoever you are and we'll accept you for whoever you are. And that was when my acceptance started and I started to accept myself once my children accepted me. I thought, I don't care what anyone else says. I know my children have got me, and to this day, everything I do is for my children, and they're what give me the kind of fire in my heart to do half the stuff that I do and keep me going and give me that drive, that determination, the ambition. It's them. And the way they've been so supportive and understanding, but at the same time, I think I did used to blame myself sometimes because of the way children used to bully them because of me and say little things to them at school, and they wouldn't say things at first. And then it got into a point where my oldest son had a fight at school and I said, look, what's going on? Oh, someone called you names and someone said, oh, tranny this or tranny that. And I thought, this is horrible. Like, I felt really bad because I didn't want to do that to my children. I just wanted to be happy. And I think sometimes you just got to understand that children can be a bit judgmental, but at the same time, it's the lack of education in schools. Like you said, we hear a lot about LGB, but we just don't hear enough of the trans. And it's such a shame because I think we're very special in our own little way because there isn't that many of us, and the ones that are there, sometimes I think it's a lot to do with confidence and getting out there and being able to have that voice and just to be brave. And I think I take my hats off to anyone who's done what I've done because I wouldn't wish it on anyone. It is not easy. It's really not. And it's not something that you could do in a year or 2 years or 3 years. I've been doing this now as well since 2011. So that's what, nearly 12 years now. So that's taken me at least, I'd say 7 or 8 years to become comfortable with myself, to be able to get up and be proud of myself in the way that I am now and keep going. I moved to London to be in the music industry, actually, funnily enough. The music industry has always been part of my life. Music has always been part of my life since I was a very young age.
Yeah, you used to be in a choir, right? And
Right,
sang for Diana. I remember that.
And
You've had multiple lives, I think. It's really amazing.
Yes, and I traveled the world as well because of music, and I've learned how to write music. I can read music. I can perform music as well. So it's kind of like music's always been the thing that saved me. Music's always been that thing that was there, that when I was in the darkest of times, or I was at the loneliest of times, or I don't know what it was, but music just always put that smile on my face, always brought me back up, even if it was the memories that it brought with it. Do you know what I mean? So
yes,
for me, music,
I think we all have these kind of anchors that keep us in the difficult times. For me, it's writing. Jyoti, what is yours?
It's music is a big thing for me, and just playing sport, being outside, and that kind of like, because I play for a lesbian football team, and that is my anchor, that is my community, who keep me sane.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing and being so vulnerable, both of you. It's really a privilege. And I'm noticing the time, so I really want us to move to the more conversational. And I've also noticed that Jamie's got her hand up, so we'll take her question as well. Just before we stop the recording and move to the conversational bit, can you each share just a one do and one don't in terms of tips for people who would like to be allies, active allies of the LGBTQA plus community? So Jyoti, one do and one don't from you.
Yeah, I think one do is if you are able to be out and use your platform, please do so. And like really simple things you can do is, if you follow LGBT plus people on social media, share their posts, because share, whether it's Stonewall or LGBT Foundation, or that's some of the ones I follow, just sharing their stuff just brings it into your network, and it's stuff that you might see all the time but your network might not, and it just kind of crosses those networks. And then don't, I guess from my experience this week, if someone comes out, obviously be as supportive as you can. Don't trivialize it, but at the same time, just be supportive, and don't what I'm getting is people keep talking to my parents now, and they're like, oh, so how's Jyoti? But how's Jyoti? And just be supportive and ask the question. Don't skirt around it. Just be supportive.
I totally agree with what you say there, actually. And sometimes I think people are scared to ask questions. I really don't mind people asking me questions. It's just the way they ask them, really. You know what I mean? Like I was saying to you before. So my do's would be keep smiling, for sure, and never give up. So my thing would be believe in yourself and don't you ever give up. If you want to do something like this, make sure you do it, and just follow your heart is my best advice that I could give you. Really, it is.
Thank you so much. Thank you, both of you. That was really amazing. So this will be the end of the formal recorded part. So I'll just end us on this very quick and simple slide. So for everyone watching the recording, everyone who's here now, stay with us. Everyone watching the recording, if you'd like to join us for the next episodes, you can find them on Eventbrite. You've got 31st of March, we've got an episode on gender equality. What if it all started with a we, with the creators, founders of the first female urinal in the UK. UK. And then we've got an episode with Simon, who's here with us today, actually, on deaf awareness coming up in April. You can also follow on Instagram, so it's at Be Beyond Borders, and Facebook as well. And you can subscribe to the newsletter on Be Beyond Borders. And if you want to rewatch the recording of this episode or watch previous episodes, future episodes, you can find them on the YouTube channel, Be Beyond Borders. So that's everything for the path that is recorded and that will be shared. And thank you for those who are watching on the YouTube channel. So now what I will do is I will stop the recording.